The street was quiet in the way American suburbs often are, where silence doesn't feel empty but settled. Trees lined the sidewalks, mailboxes stood evenly spaced, and every house carried its own small story behind closed doors. On this street, among homes painted beige, gray, and white, there stood one modest blue house that never tried to stand out, yet slowly became impossible to ignore. The Rahman family moved into that house nearly 16 years ago. Amir Rahman arrived in the United States with a legal work visa, a civil engineering degree, and a deep respect for rules. To him, laws were not restrictions but promises, agreements between people who wanted to live together without chaos. He followed every regulation carefully, paid his taxes on time, attended city meetings, and made sure his property met every code required by the neighborhood association. His wife, Sarah Rahman, believed that belonging was built through presence. She worked part-time and spent the rest of her days volunteering at schools, libraries, and community food programs. She learned her neighbors' names faster than most people learn street signs. She listened more than she spoke, and when she spoke, she did so gently. Their children, Adam and Lena, grew up American in every visible way. They attended public school, played sports, joined clubs, and argued over homework like every other child on the block. At home, they were taught discipline, honesty, and responsibility, not as religious slogans but as daily habits. When the Rahmans first arrived, curiosity followed them quietly. Some neighbors waved with genuine warmth. Others observed from a distance, unsure but not unfriendly. Amir understood this balance well. He never rushed acceptance. He believed trust had a rhythm and forcing it only disrupted the process. During the first winter, heavy snow covered the sidewalks before sunrise. Amir woke early, as he always did, and cleared his own driveway. Then he continued down the street, shoveling snow from elderly neighbors' walkways without knocking on doors or leaving notes. By the time people woke up, their paths were already clear. Small moments added up. When a neighbor's car battery died, Amir helped without hesitation. When a family went out of town, Sarah watered their plants. When someone fell ill, warm meals appeared quietly on doorsteps. No one announced these acts. No one filmed them. They simply happened. At school, Adam encountered questions early on. Why his family ate differently. Why his mother sometimes wore a scarf. Why they left early on certain evenings. He answered calmly, the way his parents taught him to. Over time, curiosity softened into familiarity. His classmates stopped asking why and started asking how. Lena joined the school choir and performed at city events. Her voice became familiar to the community long before many people knew her last name. Teachers described both children the same way year after year: focused, respectful, kind. One winter night, a severe storm struck the town without warning. Power lines collapsed under ice, and emergency services were stretched thin. The wind was loud enough to wake Amir from sleep. When he looked outside, he noticed that the house across the street remained completely dark. That house belonged to Robert Miller, a retired factory worker who lived alone and struggled with mobility issues. Amir tried calling him. No answer. He crossed the icy street, knocked repeatedly, and heard nothing from inside. He called emergency services and then made a decision that didn't feel heroic in the moment. It felt necessary. He broke a side window, entered the freezing house, and found Mr. Miller unconscious. The heating system had failed hours earlier. Amir carried him outside, wrapped him in blankets, and stayed until paramedics arrived. By the time the ambulance doors closed, Amir's hands were numb, his jacket soaked, and his heart racing. At the hospital, when Mr. Miller regained consciousness, he asked why someone would risk their life for him in the middle of a storm. The nurse answered simply that his neighbor had noticed something was wrong. The story appeared briefly in local news the next day. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't linger, but it reached enough people to spark quiet conversations. Some praised the act, others wondered why it mattered. Amir didn't respond to any of it. He returned to his routine. Work, family, service, silence. A year later, the city proposed a new ordinance that threatened to shut down a small community resource center. The regulation was legal, technical, and justified on paper. But the center served families who had nowhere else to go. Amir reviewed the proposal carefully. He studied the data, the zoning requirements, and the compliance language. At the city council meeting, he spoke without emotion or accusation. He presented alternatives, cost analyses, and long-term social impact projections. He didn't argue against the law. He argued for improving it. Weeks later, the ordinance was revised. The center remained open. The neighborhood began to change slowly. Not in appearance, but in tone. People lingered longer during conversations. Invitations became more frequent. Barriers softened without anyone announcing their removal. During Thanksgiving, Sarah prepared extra meals for neighbors who were alone. During Ramadan, the family hosted open dinners, welcoming anyone curious enough to attend. There were no speeches, no explanations, just food and shared tables. At Christmas, Amir helped neighbors decorate their homes. He didn't celebrate the holiday, but he respected it. That respect was returned quietly. One evening, Lena asked her father if they were truly American. Amir answered without hesitation. He explained that belonging wasn't proven through words or flags, but through responsibility and care for others. Years passed. Adam went on to study law, inspired by the belief that fairness could be structured and defended. Lena pursued music education, carrying her voice into classrooms much like she once carried it into choirs. The blue house remained the same. The porch light stayed on each night. The lawn stayed trimmed. New families moved in. Old ones moved away. But when someone needed help, they knocked on that door. Not because the family was different. Not because they were the same. But because they were trusted. And in a country built on shared responsibility, trust became the Rahman family's quiet legacy.